Hello, innovators. I'm Todd Wyan, and welcome to the Bridging the Gap podcast presented by Applied Software. You're invited to join our MEP and construction innovation adventure with a mission to propel this great industry forward. My guest today is Shannon Tymosko. She's a third-year electrical apprentice and skilled trades ambassador. She originally completed a child and youth work diploma where she found a passion for people, mental health, and learning. Being an advocate for the skilled trades has allowed Shannon to take her passion for people that she found while being a child and youth worker and combine it with her new love for the trades. She's done incredible things, bringing attention and awareness to the trades. Welcome to the show, Shannon.
Well, thank you very much, Todd, for having me here today. Such a nice introduction, and I'm so excited to chat.
Yeah, absolutely. I'm excited to get to talk with you. I see you all over my LinkedIn feed, and so it's fun to get to talk with you in person. Well, via Zoom, in person via Zoom.
Yes, it's as a person as we get in 2022. Although things are changing, things are now changing. We're able to start visiting people, which is nice.
Yeah, I actually had just this week. I recorded my first in-person, like face-to-face podcast episode in over 2 years, and it was actually kind of strange. I had forgotten how to do things in person. I was like, wait a second, my normal setup isn't here.
Right. It's so odd to just kind of reconnect with people and those, even without the mask, like those little social cues that we get. And we've talked about child development, and as a child and youth worker, people have said to me little things like children, they learn so much about speech through being able to see the mouths, being able to form words. And so without that kind of stuff and just social cues, like, anyways, it's good we can bring those things back so everybody can start getting back to normal and excited.
Yeah, for me, a quick aside, getting back in, it was the handshake that was the most awkward for me. Coming back in, it was like, do you shake somebody's hands? Do you like fist pump? Do you like elbow? Like I don't know. So you do like this weird like hand dance thing. I'm over that now, but it was weird for a little bit.
The hand dance is the new norm.
That's right.
Hand elbow. What do we do?
That's right. What do you do? I don't know. So you have the background in child and youth work. How does that background get pulled into the trades?
Well, they don't really necessarily often overlap, but there's definitely a lot of things that I learned through child and youth work about people, about myself. I often think back, the schooling experience was, 3 years of self-discovery, learning about, people and myself included, and mental health, and and I think it just really made me, open to people, and everybody is different. No two people are alike, and so being open to that difference. And sadly, child and youth work is not one of those jobs that you can thrive on. It's one of those jobs you just survive on. And one of the things I learned when I was, later in life, after I had this piece of paper that most people, work so hard to get, is, my piece of paper really didn't hold much relevance, but my piece of paper, I was applying against, other people with experience, not the same piece of paper. So as a child and youth worker, I was applying against, social service workers, public service workers, psychiatry majors, psychology majors, TAs, EAs, like the list goes on. And, it's experience I was applying against. And I found it really difficult to get a well-paying job because there's just so many people qualified for that job. And so one of the things I really learned to love about the skilled trades is you get this like piece of paper. It's a barrier to entry. I talk to a lot of youth, and so I talk about this piece of paper. Not every job has a barrier to entry. There's a handful of jobs out there. Teachers, skilled trades workers, doctors. You have to have a piece of paper that says you've gone through the experience, the training to do that job. And it's not like, Bob the builder can just try to be electrical today. He had to gone through the appropriate training. So it's something I've really learned to appreciate about the skilled trades, is that value that you get with that piece of paper, once you get to call yourself a journey person.
Yeah, absolutely. I want to dive into that, but before we do, you mentioned the people side was a kind of a draw, and your experience with child and youth, and the self-discovery and mental health kind of on that side of things help kind of set you up for the skilled trades. I think it's interesting because at first glance, people might not think of construction and the people side as really jiving together. The knock on construction is that they kind of push the emotions and the people side to the side and come in and do your job. And obviously you got to do your job, but that people side is really an undervalued component to it. How did we'll talk me through that on your side, in your experience. How was it with relating to people and being having that passion for people coming into the industry?
Well, I think specifically as like a women in the skilled trades, there's different challenges. When you're just, we are different. Men and women are different. I'm not saying we don't deserve equality, but we are different,
Sure.
right? And I like to often think about, we're at nature, we are animals. Just like every animal, we evolve with different, things presented in front of us. And so men, for the most part, are hunters. Women are, for the most part, gatherers. Men had to go sit out and deal, in the forest with, hunting. They sat there for an 8-hour shift waiting for one deer, hoping and praying. And like, how boring is that 8-hour shift? Where women, we are having to multitask and feed people and doing these different things. And slowly, naturally, those things have evolved. But it does make us different. And I think what child and youth work has done for me and those kind of soft skills is, the truth is, skilled trades, the men have, or the workers in general, have not had exposure to many women. And so, it's given me a little bit more of appreciation going in. It's given me a little bit more patience, knowing that I am different to them. I may be overwhelming to them. Like first thing in the morning, my voice is not what they want to hear. And I know that, right? So I have to appreciate, respect that, because it's, part of the process. And it's not a personal thing. It's just some people don't want to hear a lot first thing in the morning. It just tends to be the majority men, right? Because they're still waking up. So I've been able to take that, what I've learned about, people and just how we're so different, and instead of reacting necessarily on a construction site to how somebody might be a little more patient, understanding, and it's something I'd like to see more of. I think we know culture in the skilled trades or construction is not quite caught up to some of the other places, business kind of places, and we really do need to have a more better understanding for people, respect and stuff for people, and we need to progress that a little bit in the skilled trades. And so slowly that will come. But I think everybody will earn from that, will benefit from that.
Yeah. How should the construction industry start to put more focus on that people side of things? Or is there kind of low-hanging fruit that you see that like, yeah, this should be pretty universal?
See, the question, like, it's really hard. Like, how do you make change? And I think, I've thought about it a lot. I've been asked this question a lot. I think change is going to come natural in this circumstance. I don't think there's one like, oh, this is the solution, we're going to enforce it. Yeah. Change will come when women naturally come, and there's more of us, right? There's something about nature. Like, we're still an animal based. We are humans. When there's one versus the rest, it's proven over history, over the years, that people just go with the masses. And so again, with more women joining, the environment starts changing. Once you have 2, 3, 4 women, naturally the environment starts changing. The conversation amongst the team start changing. People can be a little bit more vulnerable. Men can start, talking about their babies maybe a little bit more, because the guys don't want to hear it, but I'm over here like, oh, let me see a cute baby picture today, right? So we change the environment a little bit. But you can't force that change. It's just with women and with diversity that will change.
Yeah, it's organic.
Yeah, it's good. I think that's the only answer to that question, to be honest. And there's no one answer.
Yeah. So how do you, when you're talking with other women, what do you say about construction? Well, why should they get in? Why is it a good field and career for women?
Well, and this is the thing. I think it's a great career for anybody. There's so many benefits. Why was I originally drawn to the industry? Well, my friend bought a house. Like, he bought a house. He wanted to rip out the kitchen, do some renovations, and I wanted to help him. And I just learned that I enjoyed this process. And what I enjoyed most was like that feeling of pride when I finished building something. And you only know that from experiencing it. And so, I think it's a job for anybody that you build confidence from competence, right? From doing something, failing, and eventually being successful. And it's a natural process going to work. You're presented with something new, you build a little more confidence. And so that in itself is amazing about construction. And I wish more people, realize the physical and mental health benefits of physical activity and those kind of challenges. And the other thing I would love women to, young people, because I think there is so many misunderstandings about or misperceptions about the skilled trades, why we can't do that job, and it's probably some of the things that kept me back. One of the big ones is dirty. It's a dirty job. Who wants to do that job? And when I talk to young people, what I like to do is I compare, electrical, because that's what I am in, but with a nurse job or a child and youth work job, which is what I did. And when I think about dirty and child and youth work, let me tell you, in that job, I was wiping bums, right? I was wiping on some days strangers' bums because as a supply teacher or a supply TA, this is your kid today. Like that's a dirty job, wiping a stranger's bum, right? Kid or not.
Yeah.
And so
Sure.
Nurses do that everywhere. Dirty is perception, right? Like, would you rather go play in the dirt like a gardener or change some bums? And nurses is a predominantly female, industry. And so that's why I like to use them. And, let's take a look at some other things that people are held back with the skilled trades. It's noisy, right? Oh, there's too much noise. Well, they provide you PPE, personal protective equipment, like, earplugs. Do you think nurses and child and youth workers get to say, child, today you're just a little too loud, I'm gonna go ahead and put those earplugs? That is not an acceptable practice, right? What about not strong enough? This is one I think that keeps many of people back. How many nurses, mothers, women out there are lifting grown children? Let's be honest, because they still want to sit on mommy's lap, right? Grown children or patients because they need to get to the bathroom. 50 pounds or more, definitely on some occasions. So if there are nurses and women everywhere able to do that, why can't you be a skilled trades worker? Because there are rules and laws in place that make it not, like, so employers can't ask you to do those things, to not exceed a certain amount to keep you safe. And so it's, I think there's so much misperception behind, the skilled trades. But when you really compare the two jobs, it's like, well, I guess it's just perception, because a nurse job is equally dirty, equally noisy, equally, heavy work. And the biggest one, unsafe. As a construction worker, I have the right to refuse unsafe work. I can say this situation, we need to do some modifications. So, it's safe. And there's laws that let me do that. Nurses can't do that. Police officers can't do that. Firefighters can't do that. They can't be like, oh, today that fire, I don't feel like running into that burning fire, right? Like, so there are some jobs you can't say no to. Construction workers have the ability to keep, people safe, because of course, there's times you're unsafe. So it's all about perception. Women, most certainly, if they ever considered being a mother or a caretaker, they can definitely be a construction worker.
I think that is brilliant. All of that reframing the conversation around that and putting it really into perspective. That's spot on. So one of the things that I admire about you, Shannon, is your willingness to put yourself out there and to kind of share your stories and your experience in the trades with people, on social and in the industry, outside the industry. What do you think that the industry can do as a whole to help kind of change the perception and kind of reframe the conversation to put an accurate portrayal of the industry?
Well, and I think education is power. This is the answer, I think, to many of things. Education. If you don't know, how would you even consider it as an option? Think about it. If it's not in your world, then you won't know. So education is the biggest thing we can do for people everywhere. And I don't mean like education, we step in at grade 11, when they're picking their university and college options, and we're like, oh, by the way, there's this for people who can't make it. Because this is also a misperception about the uneducated. Well,
yeah, it's not a fallback plan. It's a great plan A.
right? We're going to school to make sure you are safe. Absolutely. Right. And so, I think, the industry can start by educating people, not grade 11, not grade 12, but much younger. We need to change the mindsets of young people. And when I say young people, I mean, like, we need to start when we're reading books. 2 years old, 1 year. Like, how old are we when we start reading books to kids? Sometimes they're your first baby, you're reading it to it. It's like 1 week old, right? Like,
Yeah.
we're reading books to these children so early. And what are some of the messages that we send in some of these books? How many Barbie the Builders are there? It's all Bob the Builder, right? So we need to start presenting young people with, role models, with more women construction workers, diverse construction workers, because let's be honest, it's mostly a white male situation out there, right? So diversity across the board. We need to make this, something that people can see and they know it's an option starting young. And the reason I say this is I have a unique situation where I've got a nephew. He's about 5. He's a quite bright 5-year-old. And I'm like the only construction worker in my family, like registered construction worker. I have a couple talented people who, do side things at home. But when things have broken in the house, his first response, even though he knows Auntie Shannon is a construction worker and Shannon brings him tools, like, he knows who I am, he turns to the boys to fix things. And when I say the boys, I mean like accountants and bankers. Like
they're not gonna fix it. Come on.
maybe but like, I'm right here today. Like, Auntie Shannon can most certainly do that. And I think it's like conditioning. So like, when he steps out of the house and he goes to daycare, immediately there's other kids that are talking, there's other, messages being sent. And so we have to change the message. And in the industry, we need to start talking about that younger.
Yeah. I love that. So I have a lot of kids. My oldest is 6, and there's something just immensely cool and fascinating built in, I think, to little kids of watching a construction site. Has always been one of my oldest favorite activities. Is just going and sitting and just watching all the activity. And I think by encouraging that, just be like, yeah, go look at it, go up to all the people and start asking them questions and stuff and exposing them at a young age. I think it really just helps make it more
Real.
normal. Yeah, real. It's just
right?
this is a great thing to do.
Lego set you get at Christmas that brings you joy when you finish it. These are real life things that you could do.
Yeah.
And like, you could bring your kid to work and watch you sit at a desk that, like, truth be told, it probably isn't very interesting to watch us podcast right now. Like, any kid would be bored out of their mind. But if it was a construction site, like, they've got things to watch. And the thing about kids that I think not we, but just society maybe, they are sponges. Their job is to learn. And, I've watched my cousin, raise her couple of kids. And one of the biggest things that I've taken away is they are not too young to talk to them about, not, of course, age appropriate things, but my nephew was saying esophagus at 3. He knew the entire digestive system because we told him, well, let's give this a go. Next thing you know, he is saying it. But if, as the parent, you underestimate your kid and you're like, no, that's too complicated, you don't know what your kid's capable of. And so I think too often we don't challenge our kids enough. They are so smart. It's their job right now to learn. And that's what they're doing when they're watching a construction site. They are taking it all in like a little machine.
Yeah.
I find children fascinating. Just like, that's where the child and youth work can be, still kind of.
Oh yeah. Yeah, absolutely. Yeah. I think one of my my oldest, one of his first words was articulated holler. And I was like, what? How can you say that? He's like, they're cool, Daddy. I'm like, all right, they are cool. I agree.
Right?
So why do you think there is this kind of still this divide between blue collar and white collar jobs and careers? And we put this in this weird hierarchy that seems, quite frankly, to me, really outdated.
Well, it's interesting because, like, I think well, my parents, my dad's 70, right? So like his parents came, from Europe, the grandparents of the kind of our generation, those baby boomers and a little bit, they came from a generation where most of the jobs were more skilled labor or laborious jobs. And you know what? Those were probably sometimes unsafe. They didn't have things and rules in place. There are still times you run into some of the older people on sites and they're missing digits because there wasn't things in place.
Sure.
And so there is this misunderstanding about, because that's what was. And so those parents fought so hard to make sure their kids didn't work as hard as they did. Right. And, go in unsafe situations. But the problem is not everybody, not everybody is made for school, for one. Like, it's not the best learning environment for everybody. Like, that's why the apprenticeship process is so valued. We value the hands-on learning. School is important too, but if you can't learn how to use a hammer from a book. You have to do it. Right? And so, that's why we value the apprenticeship process. But the problem is schools only kind of offer this one option. They do, like, we can't say they don't offer it, but it's not talked about. It's not educated enough. And I learned this recently. I went to a career fair for high school students. And, of course, no kid wanted to be there, right? But every parent was like, oh, tell me. And their questions told me that they had no idea about how apprenticeships work. Where do I go apply for these programs? The questions, they were so clueless. And I was like, it really brought into light that we need to educate the whole society, parents included. We need to, to be honest, the university degree and diploma, there's value there 100%. Again, that barrier to entry, there are some jobs you need that. I see value there. But most times you come out and you get this piece of paper. And for me, I got a minimum wage job with a lot of debt. And the thing is, a lot of employers these days, they get 2 resumes. They know they still need to train you for your job. University didn't set you up for this job. So now they have 2 resumes. They're presented with education, no education. Well, they know education probably has debt. So you actually cost them more money, but you don't bring maybe any extra value because they still have to train you. So, the person with that piece of paper is starting to become more costly to employers because they know they can do it without that piece of paper. And it's just, our parents probably, not everybody had high school diplomas. Now everybody, like, you can't fail kids. I'm pretty sure, like, in Canada now, you're not allowed to fail people. And I'm not saying there's, we want to support them through the process, but we definitely need to make sure that they're getting the proper education and we're not just pushing them through the system. Right. Like, stop, maybe get a teacher that can help that individual catch up to where everybody, not just push them through. Right. Because then there's, everybody's got this piece of paper. Right. So apprenticeships need to be discussed, talked about, people, parents, children. How do you become a tradesperson is the question.
Yeah. What do you think some of the biggest challenges have been for you that you've had to overcome in the trades?
And this is the next, it's kind of like such a like, it just, I don't even know what the right word is. Biggest challenges is finding an apprenticeship. So here it's kind of like, parents are like, how do I do that? And I'm like, well, you just go find it. But the hardest part is finding it. And so, and it's not
catch-22 there.
Right. It's a catch-22. And it's not because finding it, doing the process is hard. The process is easy. It's that there's not many available. It's the contract, in my mind, it's the contractors need to get a little bit more on board, because what's happening and what I saw in my hiring process is there were many jobs out there for 3rd, 4th, 5th year apprentices. Well, those aren't your entry level 1st and 2nd years. Like, so as a person who's like, I want to be a person, whatever it might be, plumber, electrician, you're like searching for 1st year apprentices and you can't find one. So like, because they just don't exist, because of contractors, of course, and I get it. Who wants to take on the greenest of green, which means someone with no skill? I totally get it. They need to realize and respect that they're a part of a very important process, and that's training the next generation.
Right. Well, and we have a skilled labor shortage, and if we're not putting anybody new into the pipeline, we're just making that problem way worse every single year.
Well, and part of I feel like we do have a skilled trade shortage, or there will be. There will be lots of retirement coming, 100%. But I'm not working right now. What does that tell you? Like, where's the demand if I'm not working? And so there is a demand for cheap labor, more so than there is a demand for skilled trades labor, because they don't want to pay. They want to pay $20 an hour of a qualified person who's being paid $55 an hour, and that's what they're worth. And so there's two challenges there. There will be a shortage, a huge shortage. A lot of people are retiring. I've heard, some companies, retire their seniors. All of a sudden they realize they have nobody on board who knows how to they have employees, but to operate what they just were, in control of. They have to bring the seniors back to transfer down the knowledge. And so this is where I think there's going to be a big issue. Is there'll be an issue of shortage of labor, but there's going to be a big issue matched with that of shortage of knowledge, a lack of knowledge. Because, for example, something like electrical, I know that there is knob and tube. I've never seen it. I'm a third-year apprentice. Like you most times you're going into new builds, people have upgraded things, but I know that exists. I've never seen it. I've never worked on it. So one day, 5, 6 years, 10 years, 20 years from now, I run into a situation that's knob and tube. The seniors are now long gone. And so who's going to fix that problem? So we need to start passing down knowledge. And that's where I say that the contractors really need to get on board part of this process and realize how important they are to making, that whole process work.
Mm-hmm. I think that's a great point to bring up, because in the skilled trades, the information is in somebody's head. You're skilled for a reason, because you have experience. Going back to the hands-on aspect of it, you have that hands-on real world experience. But if you haven't experienced something, you don't have that hands-on real world experience. So you got to get it from somewhere. And I think by kind of taking down some of the silos and barriers of communication across the industry, I think we got to do a better job of that for sure.
100%. And I really think that the journeyman process is such a special process. There's the university process. And I said earlier, what is an apprenticeship? So to answer that question, an apprenticeship is an alternative. And I don't even like alternative, but it's the same equivalent to schooling.
Sure.
It's just, you do it on site and you get paid for it. And so the process is, you start as an apprentice, which is a student. That's what I am. I go to work every day to not know, to learn, right? And when I say the process, I think the very important thing is that everybody needs to respect the process. And as the first step in it, as an apprentice or student, you must be responsible for your learning, ask questions, be attentive, show up every day, be punctual, all those things, hard worker. And then the next step is the journeyman. They're the teacher, right? So they're the guy that stands at the front of the classroom, and passes down all his knowledge. The difference is, again, we believe the value of learning hands-on, right? Like you can't learn everything in a book. The book normally teaches you the right answer, how something's supposed to be. Cannot tell you all the troubleshooting. There's never all the troubleshooting solutions in there. And that's the value of the journeyman. And then the last part of the process is that contractor, that takes on both the apprentice and the journeyman, knowing that it's a learning environment and that they are creating that for both of them. And so it's such an important process. It's the same as going to school. I talked about 3 people: student, teacher, contractors, the university. That's the difference. And the biggest difference is you are not paying anybody to learn, right? The contractor or university is paying you to be there and take on that knowledge. And so that's what I love so much about the apprenticeship process. And what I wish more people knew is it's such a journey to success versus journey to debt.
Yeah, absolutely. When you were describing that, it struck me that you used the word alternative, and then you said you didn't like it. It's funny that it has been positioned now as the quote alternative to college, when really, if you look back on all of world history, the apprenticeship model is how it has been always done. That the college model is the newer model. That's technically the alternative model to the apprenticeship. That's the classic cliche model that has been going on for thousands and thousands of years, as somebody passes on their knowledge to somebody else and takes on an apprentice. It's just an interesting kind of thought.
And that just shows you how much that not to say it shows you how much people have control. Let's be honest, universities and colleges have huge amounts of money. They're of course controlling the advertising. They don't want people taking the cheaper route, right? And so that's where it's a shame to me, because I do think there is a little bit of financial reasons behind it, not versus just educating our country. Because I read a book once. It's called Half the Sky, and it talked about oppression, women's oppression around the world. And one of the things they talked about was the countries that leave their workforce, their women workforce at home. There's still a handful out there where they don't go to work. And what they made point is they compared IQ, a country's IQ, to a country's resource, like oil, lumber. IQ is a resource, and when you leave half of it home, you're only doing your country a disservice, and you're only doing, in the States, in Canada, the industry a disservice, because you're doing the same thing, leaving half of the IQ at home. Together we are stronger. We talked again that male and female, together we have weaknesses and strength that makes us better as a whole, together.
Yeah, I more than agree. It takes the collective to power it and really get the best of all aspects, all different personalities, different knowledge types, different backgrounds, different everything. The difference is the strength, not a weakness or something to overcome.
100%. I love that.
Well, what's something that you wish you knew before you entered the industry?
I feel like I knew this, but I wanted to believe differently. I feel like, the child and youth worker, the person who kind of went through psychology and me, knew better, but I wanted to believe different. I felt that I could be one of the guys. Eventually I could prove I could be one of the sisters of this brotherhood, or and not to say that I don't have moments with individuals, and I think they're all great. But what the truth is I still know they're human. And again, I kind of talked about this over history. It's been proven that with the masses, you go, and I don't even feel fault or blame for them, right? But, I will, in those moments when it's just me and them, maybe after there's a few more, but just me and them, I will never be one of the guys. They will never 100% relate to me. And I hope that changes. But I've had to, be a little bit more safe, cautious and guard, myself and stuff.
Yeah, that's sad, but I hear what you're saying with that for sure. Do you think that
the same thing goes for any man who works in a female dominated industry, right? If you're the only male, you're working with nurses, at the end of the day, again, it's going to be the masses with the one. And so again, I worked in a previously predominantly dominated industry. So I've seen both sides. I've seen both sides, and it's nature, it's human. I can't even blame upset.
Yeah. Does it, I guess this goes back to what we were talking about, of starting kind of on those one-on-one relationships and building it. It's that organic. So you gotta take the long-term kind of approach in that, not unfortunately not a simple, one size fits all, come down from on high solution.
Yeah, and it's work again, and I think it's it's great having such a great community. And it's one of the things I love about the skilled trades is you have this community, this network of people, skilled, so smart. They call them skilled for a reason. And being a skilled trades worker has given me these transferable skills to allow me to do things at home. And sometimes it's not within my trade, like doing my own oil changes, or I've started working on my own car. It's given me the confidence, the base to try different things. And if I'm not sure, I'm going to give it a go before I pay somebody to do it because I know if I kind of make a mistake, I could call, there's a list of people, like this network of people, in that trade that will be able to walk me through, kind of coach me, how to fix this. And it's one of the most amazing things about the skilled trades is that network, and there are few women, but the truth is those women that are out there, we're loud, right? Go to any social media platform, Instagram, LinkedIn, and you put like hashtag women in construction, there we are loud. Like we gather outside of the workplace if we can. We make Facebook groups to be able to support each other because we know, we're not going to maybe necessarily see each other on a construction site. And so we're few, but we're mighty. You just got to go searching for us.
Yeah, that's awesome. Kind of is a great segue to where I was going to go next. What made you to decide to kind of put yourself out there and tell your story and share your experiences in the trades on social?
Mental health and like people are kind of passionate, or like something I'm passionate about. My previous job before this, like I did some business, was training coordinator. And so I spent some time, and a manager, I spent time training people and kind of, managing people. And I really kind of learned this passion for that little light bulb, making that light bulb go off. And so entering the skilled trades as an apprentice, I have moments to teach, but they're a little bit few and far between. And so I'm a journeyman, I'm a student right now. And so this, this opportunity gives me that like being an ambassador and advocate, gets me the chance to teach young people. And I'm not teaching them like anything electrical. Like sometimes I teach how to do like basic things, switches and receptacles, but for the most part, I want them to understand the options available to them. And that has nothing to do with my job. That just has to do with, I waited till I was 30 years of age to try something. And I don't want you to wait that long, and I don't want you to have to spend a bunch of money to realize this might, this may or may not be for you, right? Try it out when you're young. Don't, let the computers and the iPads and things of the world dictate whether or not you like something. And don't think you know yourself that well. And what I mean by that is like, I always, my best friend Matt, the one who bought the house as well, and we renovated, we go canoeing. For years we used to just go canoeing down the river, and one year he finally got a kayak. And he asked me all summer, Shannon, you gotta try a kayak. And I'm like, nope. I love canoeing too much. I just love canoeing because you can lay out, suntan. I love canoeing. I didn't try it all year until the next year. Finally, I was like, okay, I'll finally give it a go. Like, so great about it. Well, now I'm like, given the choice, I want the kayak every time. And so I robbed myself of a year of joy. Not that I didn't enjoy the canoe, but more joy, just because I thought I knew myself better. Right. And so don't think you know yourself 100%. Get out and try things. Pick up a hammer, pick up a drill. Like, you'd be surprised how good it feels to smash down a wall. Right. So you have to get out and try things. And that's what gives me the kind of passion for to tell young people about these things, because I think nowadays, just because, again, I know my childhood didn't have as many when I say distractions, the one distraction, the phone, right? We had several distractions, but they were outdoors doing different things. This brings it all to one place, right, but robs them from actually experiencing it.
Yeah, that's awesome. I think your passion more than shines through, which is really, really nice to see. You don't get that in a lot of people. So
well, thank you.
Keep on keeping on. So if I could give you kind of all construction power for a moment, you could snap your fingers and innovate one aspect of the industry, what would you choose to innovate?
Do you know what? Innovation. Let me go to this. A way to, like, innovation to me is more not necessarily people, but like, how can we fix things and processes and stuff? Do you know what was really shocking to me to come to construction is the amount of waste. So here I go to like Tim Hortons and McDonald's of the world, and they've got these signs about saving the world one straw at a time, right? If you've ever walked on a construction site, the amount of waste is unbelievable. And like, just to put in perspective what I mean by that, I don't like, as an electrical person, when I go to install lights, one light may have, the light could come in plastic wrapped in a box, And then there may be another, like, there's so many, there could be like the actual cover on it. They come all individually wrapped, and the driver comes in a separate container. Then like one light could have 5-6 different pieces coming together, and each one's individually wrapped in a box, in a bigger box, sent to the site. You don't think we could do something better with this? And do you think there's recycling available? Right? Like, the amount of plastic there, the amount of waste is unbelievable. So like if we could, as a whole, reduce the waste in construction.
Right. You take a giant leap forward on sustainability for sure.
I just think about the giant plastic patch in the ocean people talk about, and I'm just like, straws ain't making up most of it. Like, anyways, so we could definitely do better on the garbage front in construction. Yeah. Reduce,
Nice.
reuse, recycle.
That's right. That's the motto. Well, how do people find out more information and connect with you?
Well, I'm across all platforms, and I think, if you have any questions, sometimes people are left with, they don't know, maybe not now, but later they have a question, you can reach out to me. You maybe just need some advice, some support. All platforms, you can find me under Shannon Tymosko, or sometimes Lady Volts if you're on other platforms. And so, yeah, if you have questions, reach out. If you're, need support, even more so, I'm here listening, and I'll do my best.
Awesome. Well, final question for you. You sort of started getting at this in the innovation question, but what does innovation mean to you?
Innovation in general is change. But so like, that's where like, I feel like I've kind of talked about where I think we need to change on other fronts. Education, the culture needs to change a little bit. But I definitely think that innovation, like in waste and how we actually do things could change as well. So just getting better, because like as human beings, we are constantly presented with new things, and we have to, adapt and get better and change. And if you're willing to do that, because not everybody's willing to change, you can only be better. Yeah.
Awesome. Well, Shannon, thanks so much for taking the time. I really enjoyed this conversation. This was great.
Well, thank you, Todd, for having me, of course. And I look forward to any chats we have in the future.
Absolutely.